Hi, my friends. Happy Monday to you. Hope that you had a great weekend and that you enjoyed your time to yourself. Hopefully, you had some time to yourself, um, and or you were energized by others, and whatever revitalizes you. I hope that you had that this weekend. Um, I stopped at Swedenborg on page 156, so I'll start with that. Just a quick update. I got some bad news this past weekend. My neighbor, Jack, passed away, alcoholism. And my aunt, Elizabeth, is in ICU. She had a stroke. And she's partially paralyzed on her right side. She's deaf. And so it's really important when you're deaf to sign into both hands so that get that cognitive dissonance, those neurons firing and that sort of thing and rerouting in the brain as soon as possible. I have a cousin who had worked with deaf stroke victims, and those are some of the hints that she gleaned from her work in San Diego. I think the Salk Institute, or something like that. But anyway, so that was not cool. And then my uncle said he had to take his wife Mary to the hospital. I'm like, well, this weekend it was like, what's going on, And so that was really weird. And then had a chance to talk to my son, my co-son, if you will, Jim, this weekend, and was able to see some pictures of him and his family, and my ex, and so that was nice. And what else? I did some music on Friday with my friend Brian. We spent hours here, and so was working on some songs and stuff. And I did a Pete Seeger song, Against the Wind, my first time, so hope you enjoyed it. So we are on page 156, and I'm just going to start from the top and get into it. We were talking about if your own intelligence doesn't see anything true, such as times, it either turns away or falsifies it. We have both an emotional and cognitive sense of identity. Our emotional sense of identity is evil. Our cognitive sense of identity is the falsity that it prompts. The latter is what is meant by the will of man, and the former by the will of the flesh in John 1:13. Essentially, our voluntary side is a love of ourselves, and our cognitive side is a pride born of that love. They're like two married partners, and their marriage is called the marriage of what is evil and what is false. Every evil spirit is co-signed to this marriage before entering hell. Once people are there, they do not know what is good, since they call their evil good and experience it as pleasant. They turn away from truth as well and don't want to see it. This is because they see the falsity that agrees with their evil, the way the eye sees beauty. They hear it the way the ear hears harmony. Divine providence is constantly, or God's role, is constantly making sure that we see what is true and giving us a desire to both appreciate it and accept it. It happens because divine providence is acting from the inside and flowing through to the outside, from the spiritual levels into things in our lower self. Then it enlightens our discernment with heaven's light, gives life to our volition and heaven's warmth. Essentially, heaven's light is divine wisdom, and heaven's warmth is divine love. Nothing can flow in from divine wisdom except what is true. Nothing can flow in from divine love except what is good. This is how the Lord gives us our discernment, a desire to see what is true and to appreciate and to accept it. This is how we become human, not only as to our outer face, but as to our inner one as well. Is there anyone who does not want to seem like a rational spiritual individual? Is anyone not aware of the desire to be regarded by others as truly human? If we are rational and spiritual only in outward form, then and not inwardly as well, are we human? Are we anything but an actor on the stage, or an ape with an almost human face? Does it not show that we are human only when we are inwardly as human as we seem to others? If we recognize the one kind of humanity, we must recognize the other. The only thing in our intelligence can do is to adopt a human form outwardly, but divine providence, God's rule, can adopt one inwardly and give us an outward form through the inner. When this is done, then we not only look human, we are human. In this way, we are led away from evil, not by ourselves, but by our Lord. The reason we can be led away from evil when divine providence enables us to see what is true and gives us a desire for it, as well as the truth points out and indicates things. When our volition does these things, it unites with truth and transforms it to something good within itself. It becomes a matter of its love. And whatever is a matter of love is good. All our reformation is accomplished by means of truth and not apart from it. Since the absence of truth, our volition says dedicated to evil, if it does look to our discernment, it is not taught anything. Instead, its evil is justified by falsities. As for our intelligence, it seems to be ours, really to belong to us, whether we are good or evil. Good people are kept in a state of acting from their intelligence as though it belonged to them, just as evil people are. If we believe in divine providence, God's rule, though we are kept from evil, but if we do not believe, we are not kept from it. When we recognize that an evil is a sin, and want to be kept from it, we believe. When we do not recognize and want this, we do not believe. The difference between the two kinds of intelligence is like the difference between something we believe to be inherently real, something we believe is not inherently real, but which we seem to be. It is like our outer surface that does not have an inner substance consistent with it, and the outer surface that does not have such an inner substance. So it's like the speech and the actions of the mimes and the actors who play the parts of royal and noble persons. On one hand, the royals and nobles themselves, and on the other. The latter are the same inwardly and as they are outwardly. The others only have the outward guise, and that they lay that aside, and we call them comics, actors, impersonators. The Lord controls the hells by means of opposites. As for evil people who are still in this world, he controls them in hell as to their deeper natures, not as to their more outward natures. People who do not know what heaven and hell are like have no way whatever of knowing what the human mind is like. Our mind is our spirit, the spirit that lives after death. This is because the whole form of our mind or spirit is like the form of heaven or hell. There is no difference whatsoever, except that the one is immense and the other minute, or that the one is the model and the other the impression. Okay. As for our minds or spirits are concerned, then we are either a miniature heaven or a miniature hell. A heaven if we are being led by the Lord, a hell if we are leading ourselves. And since we have been allowed to know what heaven is like and what hell is like, since it's important that we know our nature as to mind or spirit, I want to offer a brief description of each. As people who are in heaven are simply desired for what is good and the consequent recognition of what is true, all the people who are in hell are simply obsessions with evil and the consequent illusions of falsity. They are arranged on each side so that the obsession with evil and illusion of falsity in hell are exactly the opposite to the desires for what is good and recognition of what is true in heaven. So hell is under heaven and diametrically opposed to it. Diametrically opposed as two people lying in opposite direction or stationed foot to foot or upside down, and both united at the soles of their feet, heel against heel. Sometimes hell can be seen in this kind of location or direction relative to heaven. The reason is that people in hell, the obsessions with evil constitute the head, and the desires for good constitute the feet, while for people in heaven, desires for what is good constitutes the head, and the obsession with evil constitute the soles of the feet. This means that they are opposed, they're opposite of each other. To say that desires for what is good and therefore recognition of truth in heaven, and that they are obsessions with evil and therefore illusions of falsities in hell, is actually to say that there are spirits and angels of this quality, because we are all our own desire and our own obsession. Heaven's angels are their own desires, and hell's spirits are their own obsessions. The reasons heaven's angels are desired for what is good and a consequent recognition of truth is what they are receptive of divine love and wisdom from the Lord, and all desires for what is good come from divine love, and all recognition of truth comes from divine wisdom. On the other hand, the reason all spirits of hell are obsessions with evil and the consequent illusions of falsity is that they're wrapped up in their self-love and their own intelligence, and all the obsessions with evil come from self-love. All illusions of falsity come from our own intelligence. Okay, I'm going to stop there. This is page 159. Okay, good. That's just a lot to think about, so I just wanted to give you guys a little respite there. Yeah, if you could keep my brother John in prayer and my Aunt Elizabeth in prayer, I would really appreciate that. I've been talking to all my cousins and on Facebook and stuff, and trying to find out what's going on. I was able to find out a little bit more yesterday through my Aunt Carlene and her daughter Karina, and so just praying for a full recovery. They're looking at the MRI and to see she's going to have some brain swelling and that kind of stuff, and so I had a grandfather who had a massive stroke on my father's side, and he died from it fairly soon after. He was in his 80s, and my aunt is in her 70s, I believe, still. Yeah. And so, yeah, if you would keep her in prayer. And I hope that you have a great week. I hope things are going well with you and your loved ones. Leave me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. What else? Oh, there was a movie I saw. I think it's like Into the Wild, or it's about a true story about a gal from Ireland who wins the ability to showcase her gardening expertise, if you will, at the Chelsea Gardening Show in London, but she's from Ireland, and she grew up with loving the way nature is in the wild and how beautiful it is and how everything works cohesively with each other, and how man's idea of gardening and gardens and stuff, we should really follow God's nature on how to make gardens and stuff. And so it was just wonderful. And so if you get a chance to see that, you might enjoy, that film. Anyway, I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.